Hey everybody, this is Mr. Longo, and in this video we are going to cover linear models. And just for fun, I made up some minutes of studying versus grade you get on a quiz. This is just fictional. I haven't really looked into this at all. But what we're going to do is introduce you to what's known as linear regression. So what we're going to do here is take a look at the data and say, if you don't study at all, you're going to probably score a 55 on a quiz. If you've paid attention in class at all, of course. If you study for 10 minutes, maybe you'll get a 64. Someone that studies for 12 minutes got a 63. 20 minutes, that kid claimed, got a 72. So just some fictional data, and we, of course, plotted it out on a little table. But what we're going to do is talk about finding a linear model that would help you predict other grades versus time studying. And one thing you can do is estimate a line, and you can say, well, if I draw a line kind of like this, that goes through most of the points, and that would be a good example, right? But then you have to somehow figure out some of these nice points, calculate your slope, your y-intercept, all of that stuff, and come up with an equation. Well, lucky for you, our calculator knows how to do this, okay? So what we're going to do is first talk about the type of function this looks like. Obviously looks linear with a positive slope, okay? So we're going to say that this is a positive linear function. We're going to talk about all sorts of models throughout the course of this year, quadratic, power, all sorts of different things. So, but this one looks like it's linear, and it has a positive slope. So how do we find the equation? Well, all you need is to take your calculator, and what you're going to do is you're going to click Stat. And Stat is going to take you to a edit, all this other stuff. This is where you find your lists. So if you click Enter, you have L1 and L2. And what you need to do is type into L1 and into L2 the data that I have given. Now I've already done that just to save time on the video. If you do not have an L1 or an L2, it means you accidentally deleted them. Just click that Stat button again and click number 5, Set Up Editor. Click Enter, and it should bring everything right back. Okay? So, what we need to do from here is you click Stat and slide over to Calc. Your calculator has the ability to create what would be an approximate equation for that data. Since it's a line, we would use a linreg, or a linear regression. Your calculator can also do quadratic, cubic, quartic. It could even do things like exponential. So what you want to do is go to number 4, or just press number 4, and you should have L1 and L2 should automatically pop up. If not, it's just second and of course 1, second 2. Frequency list we are not going to use. Store, that might be helpful because we're going to use our calculator to then predict some other values and sketch a graph for us. So if you want to store it into Y1 of your graphing calculator, what you do is you click the vars button and slide over to yvars and click Enter on function and then Y1. What that is going to do is tell your calculator that once it finds the equation, throw it into Y1 for me now so I don't have to worry about it later. And click Enter, and it's going to calculate it for you. So the approximate equation to represent this data is y is equal to 1.16x plus 53.37. Okay? That's what our calculator is telling us. So what are we going to use that for? Well, as I mentioned, it's going to go into y1, or y equals. So if you click y equals, it's going to see it already put that there. And what you should do is turn on this plot if yours is not turned on already. So if you go up to plot and click Enter, it'll turn it on, and then if you click Enter again, it'll turn it off, kind of like a toggle switch. So if you click Graph, this is what's going to show up. Now before you freak out and say mine doesn't look like that, it's because, remember, like anything we've done back in the days in Algebra 2 Trig or Algebra 1, you sometimes have to adjust your window. So what I did is I just adjusted my window to have a x maximum of 45, a little bit bigger than our biggest piece, and a y maximum of 105. You could use an x min and a y min of 0 because we obviously can't have negative time or negative grades, but I like using -2 just so we can see the axes. So that's how I ended up getting this graph. Okay, old school calculator skills. So now that you have the function, you can use it to predict what certain grades might be. Now there are a number of ways to do this. You can click second graph, which will take you to a table. And then you would just scroll all the way down till you get to 35 and 60. That might take a while. You can absolutely do it if you want. Another way to do it is to click second window and change your table from auto to ask for your independent variable. Then when you go to second table, it's going to say what's x, and you're going to say that you want the calculator to evaluate 35. Click enter, and it's going to tell you that you would approximately get a 94%. If you clicked 60, it would tell you that if you studied for an hour, you would have 123%. So the one thing about linear regression is when you are using it to predict other values, if it is inside your given data range, it's known as interpolation. That is actually fairly accurate. But when you are outside of the data range, that's known as linear extrapolation, and that's not always as reliable. I mean, honestly, if you study for an hour, you're not going to score 123%. You can't score above 100% unless there's an extra credit question, which of course we're going to pretend is not existing right now. So 94%, yeah, that's a possibility. Now, of course, with all data, anything can change. It's not going to be a great predictor. You might study for 2 hours on this quiz and fail it. You might not study at all and ace it. It all depends on how comfortable you are with the material. And then, of course, what does the slope actually represent? So when you're working with models, your slope, in this case, was 1.16, but you need to be able to interpret what that means. And basically what it means is how much your grade increases per minute of studying. That's what it means. So you would just say the percent your grade increases, since it's positive, per minute of studying. Okay, so that is what we're talking about when we're working with linear models. And that's all I've got for this one. This is Longo and I'm out. See you, bye.